Still searching for a motive and working to ensure the admitted bomber's attacks have ended, law enforcement authorities continue checking what's believed to be a target list of additional addresses serial bomber Mark Anthony Conditt may have hoped to strike. While the Bexar County Sheriff's Department has not mentioned Santeria, at least some of the 11 people arrested last week on charges of animal cruelty are Santeria practitioners, with one official noting the charges are related to an unknown ritual involving dismembered goats and chickens. And with confusion continuing to build around Kawhi Leonard's season status, key Spurs team veterans took matters into their own hands. Good morning. Those are your headlines from ExpressNews.com. I'm Chance Dorland with your Express News briefing for Friday, March 23rd. Brought to you this morning by the San Antonio Express News. Austin Republican and House Homeland Security Committee Chair Representative Michael McCall says authorities are looking into a list of addresses from admitted Austin serial bomber Mark Conditt's cell phone. They believe could be a list of locations he had hoped to target in the future, with Representative McCall noting that investigators went to each individual home, eventually clearing all of them for any explosive devices. The list comes from cell phone information and a Google search history generated by Conditt, a 23-year-old Pflugerville man who ended his 3-week spree of bombings Wednesday by blowing himself up in a confrontation with investigators. In a video statement also found on his phone, Conditt reportedly described himself as a psychopath with no remorse. The Austin American-Statesman reported Thursday that Conditt said, quote, "I wish I were sorry, but I am not." Investigators familiar with the bombing case confirmed that the target list is being compared with the locations and targets of Conditt's 6 bombs, and while noting that the addresses are in Austin and suburban Cedar Park, won't comment on whether the list fits a pattern or identifies any public officials. Police say in the video, Conditt discusses each bomb he built over the past 3 weeks, including the one he used to end his life, noting that while it's clear he didn't intend to be taken alive, the bomber did not provide clues as to a motive, making no references to terror groups or any hint that the bombings were racially motivated. However, as the first 3 targeted victims were minorities, police had considered whether the bombings met the legal definition of a hate crime. The Bexar County Sheriff's Department and the District Attorney's Office are not releasing much information about last week's controversial arrests of 11 people on charges of animal cruelty that one official describes as some sort of unknown ritual involving dismembered goats and chickens. Ranging in age from 23 to 65, last week, 11 people were charged with cruelty to livestock animals, a Class A misdemeanor. All have since been released on bond. While officials have not mentioned Santeria, in a TV interview, 2 of those arrested confirmed they are practitioners of that religion. Academics say Santeria's mixture of Catholic and African beliefs and practice of animal sacrifice have been historically misunderstood and persecuted, but as with any religion, is protected by the First Amendment and reinforced by a 1993 unanimous Supreme Court ruling. In addition, as both are routinely slaughtered for human consumption in commercial and residential settings, animal protection authorities say killing animals such as chicken and goats is not illegal. The Sheriff's Department says last weekend neighbors reported people cutting up animal parts and draining blood from a chicken into a container, with officers then finding multiple dead and mutilated animals inside a house, with one officer fluent in both English and Spanish reporting being unable to understand the language participants were speaking at the time. As a folk religion often practiced in secret, Santeria has no ordained clergy and no denomination with a central authority or associated groups. Factors that mean reliable estimates on the numbers of its U.S. practitioners are unavailable. While San Antonio Animal Care Services spokeswoman Lisa Norwood says non-endangered animal sacrifice arrests are usually related to the conditions of how animals are kept or how they're killed, Trinity University assistant religion professor Angela Tarango says the animals used in sacrifice rituals are, quote, killed faster and more humanely than at a slaughterhouse. And as animals are cooked and eaten afterward, their lives aren't sacrificed needlessly. And sources tell the Express News, after Saturday's win over the Minnesota Timberwolves, Spurs team veterans, led by Tony Parker, held a players-only meeting to ask Kawhi Leonard if he intends to play again this season, and if so, when. Leonard reportedly was caught off guard by the meeting but stood his ground, telling teammates his goal remains to again step on the court, but offered no set date or guarantee about a return this season. Sources say during that meeting, the Spurs franchise player did receive support from some teammates who told him not to return until he feels healthy enough to play. The meeting lasted roughly 5 to 10 minutes and ended with no clear update on Leonard's plans. When asked Wednesday about Leonard's status, Manu Ginobili responded that for him, Leonard is not coming back because thinking he will return is not helping. The franchise player has not played since January 13th as he continues to rehab from a right quadriceps tendinopathy that knocked him out of the first 27 games of the season, followed by a second absence, giving the two-time Defensive Player of the Year only 9 games played this season. Earlier this month, Spurs coach Greg Popovich told reporters Leonard still needs medical clearance from doctors outside of the team before deciding his status. But when recently asked, with so few games remaining, if the team would put Leonard back on the court following medical approval, Popovich said, quote, "That's a negotiation between the player and the coach to figure out what's best." In need of a spark after being swept on a recent 3-game road trip, Popovich revamped his starting lineup once again, reinserting Danny Green to play alongside Patty Mills, DeJounte Murray, Kyle Anderson, and LaMarcus Aldridge. And after beating the Washington Wizards, the Spurs have now won their last 5 games, returning to 6th in the Western Conference playoff hunt. And that's your Express Briefing for Friday, March 23rd from expressnews.com. Brought to you today by the San Antonio Express News. I'm Chance Dorland.